we get back once or twice a year. Still have family up here and a lot of friends. that it's always special. And you know, for me growing up, Fort Wayne was kind of a second hometown. I mean, that was where we, as high school kids, and later on, that's where we met pizza. That's where we ran into a lot of early things. So this area is very special to me, and in the Fort Wayne sense, here Gates was always an inspiration to me. He was very, very special, and probably my first real journalism instructor as a kid. He was a great teacher in seeing both sides and giving credit to the opponent. You know, he was obviously doing Piston games for the Piston audience, but he would always recognize somebody on the other side that was playing well too, and it was a good lesson as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old to hear those things.
Absolutely. You'll have a chance to talk with folks about your new book. If you could, summarize your book real quick. What's this about?
It's a declaration of how very, very lucky I was, because openings kept coming for me that I didn't earn or qualify for, and if you're given the ball, if you don't score, it's your own fault. I was given the ball an awful lot of times by people that were just taking a big risk, but because I hadn't shown anything at the point that I got my first chances, and that of course started here at the newspaper in Huntington, the Herald Press, and the editor was Howard Houghton, who lost his sports editor in the spring. I was a freshman at IU, and he sent me a letter asking if I'd like to take it for the summer while they looked for a permanent replacement. Well, I just never moved out of that chair. So it worked. I never got back to school. It was a dumb way to do things, but I was having a lot of fun. So I just stayed with it.
When you hear folks rattle off all the things you've done in your time in sports, does it even surprise you sometimes?
Well, the opportunities to do those, yes, because that's another part of the great luck. At Bloomington, I was under the one guy in America who would, as a small town newspaper publisher, would pay for sending me to places like the Olympics and the Final Fours, things of that nature. How singular that was demonstrated when both the NCAA and the Olympic Committee set circulation limits. You had to be at least 75,000 to get a Final Four credential, and at least 100,000 to be considered for the Olympics. Well, we were around 20,000, way under far. And in fact, there was only one other paper under 75, and that was Topeka, Kansas, the capital paper in Kansas, and they were around 60,000. So to be at the one paper in America that would take that risk and spend that money, and that's sheer luck. There's nothing more than that.
Obviously, your coverage of IU sports and Coach Bob Knight was a lot of what you did, and that relationship. You might have the best relationship with Coach Knight from a media standpoint. Would you agree?
Well, it's that is a very special relationship. I don't minimize that in the least, but what isn't recognized is that he had a lot of those. There were a lot of people in the media that he was very close to, and because I'm in Bloomington, and we're together every day practically. It was accented more, but he had a whole lot more respect for the media than he ever let out. and he understood what a good story was, and if that was in Washington or is that in New York or any place else, he understood that. And he had, for example, Dave Kindred came out of Louisville, and it was with the Washington Post later, the Atlanta Constitution. Dave was a very close friend of Bob's, but they both kept it quiet, I think.
And that still continues?
Yes, yeah, and he's just one. There were a number like that.
No, I mean your relationship with
Oh,
Bob.
oh yeah. In fact, I talked to him on the way up yesterday. So he was, and he was reading the book at the time, and he had some critical comments to make. So it was, so I could tell he was reading.
As to be expected, right?
I always needled him because he insisted he never read the newspaper, but he always had. I never sneaked anything by him either. If he spotted something he didn't think was right, so for a guy that didn't read the paper, somehow he was able to see those things.
And I know that the one gentleman was talking about his health. Obviously, everybody's concerned about it. Is that any?
Well, his memory's fading. There's no question. I mean, that's pretty obvious from his appearances. But as that experience yesterday on the way up showed, it's still pretty sharp at time when he wants it to be. Age just does things to memory. And I can see it in me, and the two of us had great memories, and we would kind of duel sometimes on scores of particular games, or who did what in what game, and we'd come out. I held my own in that. The one place where he always had me, he would know the halftime score of a game, and I puzzled over that for a long time. Because why does he remember it and I don't? Because that didn't mean anything to me. Well, it finally dawned on me that his whole halftime is based on what the score is at that point, what he's going to do the rest of the game. He's much more cognizant of the halftime score than I am. So, but he always had a big edge on that.
All right. Thanks so much, Bob.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.